Hello and welcome. Before we begin, I want to invite you to take a slow breath to let your body settle, and to remind you that this space is made for rest, calmness, and peaceful learning. Tonight, we will drift softly into the early world of the Franks, one of the most influential Germanic tribes in European history. And before we start, if you enjoy peaceful history journeys like this one, I would truly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me create more calm, soothing videos to help you relax, learn, and fall asleep deeply. Thank you so much. Now, allow yourself to settle into a comfortable position. You don't need to focus intensely. Just let my voice float gently in the background, like a soft breeze moving through old forests where the earliest Frankish ancestors once walked. And if your mind drifts away, that's perfectly okay. That is exactly what this story is meant to do. Tonight, we begin a long, quiet journey, nearly 3 hours, into the world of the Franks, the Germanic people who rose from deep forests and river valleys to shape medieval Europe, build kingdoms, and eventually create the foundations of modern France and Germany. But our story starts long before kings and crowns, long before knights and castles, long before even the Roman Empire fell. Our story begins in the stillness of the ancient world, in a landscape that was quiet, wild, and deeply connected to nature. Imagine, if you like, a soft northern dawn spreading across endless woodlands. Tall oaks, beeches, and pines stretch upward into a pale sky. Mist hangs low over the ground, wrapping the earth in a gentle veil of silver. Rivers wind slowly through thick forests, their waters dark and steady, carrying the reflections of clouds. The air smells of moss, rain, and damp soil. This was the world of the early Germanic peoples, the world from which the Franks emerged, and no cities broke the horizon. No armies marched across the land. No stone temples rose into the air. Life was shaped by the quiet pulse of nature, by seasons, by rivers, by forests, by the strength of the community. The ancestors of the Franks lived in small settlements, wooden villages surrounded by farmland, meadows, and sacred groves. Houses were built from timber and thatch, warm and simple, protecting families through long winters and soft summers. These early communities were not yet called Franks. They were part of the larger tapestry of Germanic tribes living east of the Rhine, people connected by language, customs, and shared ancestry. Life moved at a slow, steady rhythm. Farmers cared for livestock in fields. Hunters moved carefully beneath the trees. Women managed households, preserved food, crafted clothing, and maintained the heart of the community. Children learned from watching their parents, absorbing knowledge passed down through countless generations. If you listen quietly, you might almost hear the crackling of a small hearth fire, the low voices of families telling stories, the soft shuffle of footsteps on wooden floors. Everything relied on cooperation, memory, and tradition, the kind of traditions that stretched far into the past, long before writing, long before recorded history. The Franks would later rise to power, forming some of the largest and most influential kingdoms of early medieval Europe. But in these early centuries, before they had a name recognized by outsiders, they were simply part of a living landscape of tribes and clans. Their identity was shaped by the land, by the lowlands of modern-day Belgium, the forests of western Germany, and the wide river valleys that carved paths through the countryside. The Rhine River was especially important, a great flowing boundary that separated worlds. To the west lay Gaul, with its cities, roads, and Roman influence. To the east lay the deep forests of the Germanic tribes. For centuries, the Franks, like many others, lived between these two worlds. They were close enough to Rome to trade, learn, and interact, but distant enough to maintain their independence and traditions. That it is in this borderland world, quiet yet full of potential, that the story of the Franks begins. If you picture the banks of the Rhine at dawn, you might imagine a thin fog drifting slowly above the water. The river moves with steady, patient strength. Birds call softly from the trees. Small wooden boats rest on the shore, tied to stakes hammered into the mud. And somewhere nearby, hidden among the trees, there is a small settlement, a Frankish village in its earliest form. You can imagine wooden houses arranged in a loose cluster, smoke rising gently from the roof holes. People begin their day without hurry, preparing tools, tending animals, gathering wood. There is no rush, no noise, no tension. Life follows the same patterns as the years before and the years before that. This peaceful simplicity shaped the early identity of the Franks. They valued loyalty, kinship, courage, and community. Their society was built upon clans and families, each with its own traditions and responsibilities. Elders passed down laws through memory, not writing. Decisions were made in assemblies, gatherings where free men discussed disputes, alliances, and shared concerns. Even their beliefs were rooted deeply in nature. Sacred trees, groves, rivers, and stones held spiritual meaning. The early Franks, like many Germanic peoples, believed in unseen forces and ancestral spirits. Rituals were performed to honor gods, seek protection, and maintain harmony with the land. Let your thoughts settle into this world, a world with no rushing, no sharp noise, only the slow rhythm of ancient life, echoing quietly through time as we move through this long series, 15 parts in total. We will follow the Franks from these simple beginnings through every stage of their transformation. From unnamed forest tribes to allies and enemies of Rome, to the rise of the Merovingians, to Clovis, the warrior king who united them, and beyond, into the Carolingian world that would shape medieval Europe. But for now, in this first part, we remain in their earliest era, the era before power, before kings, before the world knew their name. This is the calm beginning of a great story. Imagine evening settling over a Frankish village. The sky darkens slowly, turning shades of violet and deep blue. A few stars appear, shimmering like faint sparks above the treetops. Inside the wooden houses, families gather around fires. The warm light flickers over wooden beams and woven baskets. People speak quietly, sharing food, stories, and gentle laughter. Outside, the night grows colder. Wolves may howl in the distance, their calls echoing through the forest. But inside, the village is warm, safe, peaceful. This was the emotional world of the early Franks, a balance between nature's vast power and the warmth of community. They lived with the land, not against it. And although they would later become known for their warriors and kings, their story begins with quiet endurance, farming, craftsmanship, and deep connection to family. Now, let your mind drift as we close part 1, and soon, when you're ready, we will continue into part 2, where the Franks first emerge into Roman records and history begins to notice them. But not yet. For now, rest, breathe deeply, and let this ancient world gently settle around you, like the soft night air drifting over the forests of long ago. Welcome back. Before we continue, take a moment to settle yourself again. Let your shoulders drop a little more. Let your breathing slow down. Let your thoughts loosen. Like leaves floating gently on a quiet river, we are returning now to the ancient world, to a time when the Franks were still forming their identity. A time when their name was only beginning to appear in distant, careful Roman writings. In part 1, we wandered through the forests and river valleys where the earliest Frankish communities lived their quiet lives. We felt the rhythm of their days, the closeness of nature, the warmth of small wooden homes scattered across ancient landscapes. Now, in part 2, a new presence enters the horizon of Frankish history, Rome, that a vast empire of stone and order, a world completely different from the soft, wooded lands of the Germanic tribes, and yet, these two worlds would slowly begin to touch. Not suddenly, not with thunder or catastrophe, but gradually, like two tides meeting across the surface of a wide sea. Imagine the Rhine River again, the great flowing boundary between Roman Gaul in the west and the deep Germanic forests in the east. At certain moments in early morning light, the river looks almost like a silver blade, dividing worlds that rarely understood one another on the western bank. Stone roads, Roman villas, cultivated fields, and distant military outposts on the eastern bank. Endless forests, wooden villages, sacred groves, and the quiet lives of the Franks. Rome had watched Germanic tribes for centuries. They had written about them, fought them, traded with them, feared them, and at times admired them. But the Franks were different. Their name did not appear in Roman texts until much later than many other tribes. They rose not from a single ancient people, but from a confederation, a gathering of Germanic groups who slowly began to unite. Their earliest Roman mentions speak of tribes known as the Salians, the Ripuarians, the Chamavi, the Bructeri, and others, tribes that lived east of the Rhine, each with its own chiefs, warriors, customs, and riverside homeland. Over time, these groups would merge into a larger identity, the Franks. But in these early centuries, their interactions with Rome were limited, gentle, and often driven by trade rather than conflict. Imagine a small Roman river outpost along the Rhine at dusk. A handful of soldiers stand on a wooden platform, watching the forests across the water fade into shadow. Birds call softly, and the air is cool. At the edge of the trees, a small group of Germanic traders appears, carrying furs, amber, honey, and wooden crafts. They approach the riverbank with quiet confidence, not as enemies but as neighbors. Roman soldiers might call out in Latin, asking who they are and what they bring. The traders answer in a Germanic tongue, with gestures and familiar words learned from years of contact. Goods are exchanged carefully, coins for furs, tools for amber, wine for honey. There is tension, but also curiosity. Two worlds meeting at the quiet rhythm of trade. These early peaceful exchanges shaped the first impressions between the Franks and Rome. To the Romans, these tribes were rugged, tall, strong, and deeply connected to the land. They lived free lives that seemed simple but carried wisdom passed through centuries. To the Franks, Rome was distant, powerful, and strange. A world of walls, statues, roads, and endless rules. As you drift deeper into this calm story, imagine the river once more in the dim light of dawn. Mist rises from the water like pale smoke. The quiet splash of oars echoes across the surface as a small Roman patrol boat moves upstream. On the opposite side, the silhouette of a Frankish warrior watches from behind a tree. He is not an enemy, not yet. He is simply an observer, curious about the empire that borders his ancestral lands. This soft tension, not war, but awareness, shaped the early relationship between the two peoples. Rome had centuries of power behind it. The Franks had centuries of patience, flexibility, and endurance. Both qualities would matter in the centuries to come. As decades passed, Rome began to feel the pressure of countless borders, from the north, the east, and even within its own walls. The Franks, observing from the forests, noticed these changes. They did not rush into war. Instead, they watched, adapted, and learned. Some Frankish groups served as foederati, allied soldiers for Rome. Others traded peacefully. A few raided occasionally, driven by hunger, opportunity, or internal disputes. But none yet imagined the future that awaited them. A future where the Franks would not only interact with Rome, but eventually build kingdoms on its remains. For now, though, in our calm journey, conflict is still distant. Great battles shake the earth. Kings rise while empire falls. Everything is quiet. The Franks remain mostly unnoticed in the vast tapestry of Roman history. They live in forests and wetlands, in villages near rivers, following ancient rhythms unchanged by the world beyond the Rhine. Imagine a Frankish settlement in late afternoon light. Children run playfully through the grass. Women carry baskets filled with grain, herbs, and vegetables. Men repair fences, tend to cattle, sharpen tools, or carve wooden bowls. Smoke rises gently from cooking fires, carrying the faint scent of roasted meat and herbs. There is no urgency and no sense of destiny, just the steady flow of life. These communities were small but strong. They valued loyalty, honor, and courage. Their leaders were chosen not through elaborate ceremonies, but through reputation, proven bravery, wisdom in disputes, skill in negotiation, and the respect of the people. And these early centuries, before the rise of famous kings, the Franks were shaped by the simple lessons of survival. The rhythm of seasons, the closeness of nature, the strength of family ties, and the quiet persistence of traditions. And as Rome watched them, interacted with them, and occasionally felt their presence along the Rhine, the Franks slowly, gently entered the pages of history. Now, as you breathe softly, imagine night returning to the forests. Stars appear one by one, shimmering above tall trees. The river grows dark and still. Firelight glows behind wooden walls as families settle in for sleep. A calm quietness settles over the land, wrapping everything in gentle darkness. This is the world where the early Frankish identity was born, a world of forests and rivers, of slow transformation, of rising awareness, and of the first soft encounters with the greatest empire of the ancient world. When you're ready, Part 3 will continue, and we will follow the Franks as they grow stronger, form alliances, and take their first steps toward becoming a true power in the north. For now, rest your thoughts, breathe deeply, and let the ancient world fade softly into peaceful stillness. Welcome back. Take a moment before we continue to release a little more tension from your body. Let your hands rest softly. Let your jaw loosen. Let your breathing find a quiet, natural rhythm. Tonight, we drift deeper into the early story of the Franks, into the moment when they began to form a true identity, not just as scattered Germanic tribes, but as a rising people whose presence would soon shape the fading horizons of the Roman world. In Part 2, we saw how the Franks lived along the Rhine, slowly becoming known to Rome, not as conquerors, not yet, but as neighbors, traders, occasional raiders, and emerging allies. Their interactions with the empire were cautious and gradual, like two rivers that begin far apart but slowly flow toward the same sea. Now, in Part 3, the mists of the past begin to lift slightly. The Romans start to mention the Franks more clearly, names appear, groups form alliances, patterns begin to emerge across the forests and rivers of the north. But despite this growth, life for the early Franks still moves at a slow, ancient pace. Let us return to their world. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast Frankish forest at dusk. Tall oaks, ancient and powerful, stretch upward like pillars holding the sky. Their leaves whisper softly in the evening breeze, creating a peaceful, steady sound. Like a gentle lullaby sung by nature itself, a narrow dirt path winds between the trees, leading to a settlement hidden among roots and branches. The early Franks did not build great stone cities. They lived close to the earth, in wooden houses, long halls, and open courtyards. Their villages were small, clusters of homes surrounded by fields, pastures, and protective forests. As we walk along this quiet path in our imagination, we can picture the warmth of firelight glowing from the windows of a large wooden hall. This hall is the center of the community, the place where decisions are made, disputes are settled, feasts are held, and stories are told. Inside, elders gather around a long wooden table, speaking softly. The flickering fire plays across their faces, mixing shadows with the warm glow of the hearth. These elders hold memory, the long, unbroken chain of traditions that guide the tribe. Laws are not written but spoken. History is not inscribed but told. Identity is not fixed but carried from one generation to the next through stories, rituals, and shared experience. This is how the Frankish identity begins to form, not from kings or conquests, but from the threads of community woven slowly over centuries. As you relax into this story, imagine the sound of distant water flowing, maybe a stream, maybe a river, always nearby. Water was central to the lives of the Franks. The Rhine, the Meuse, the Scheldt, and many smaller rivers shaped their lands. These waterways were their routes of travel, their sources of food, their boundaries, and their protection. When the Romans first described the Franks more specifically, they spoke of two of their emerging groups, the Salients and the Ripuarians. Both were Germanic, both lived near the Rhine, but each occupied a slightly different world. The Salians lived more to the west, closer to the sea, in lands with marshes, rivers, and fertile plains. Their name may come from the word sal, meaning river or sea, suggesting their watery homeland. The Ripuarians lived along the Middle Rhine, near its steep banks and forested hills. Their lands were wilder, more forested, and filled with ancient paths known only to the tribes. Over time, these groups would draw closer together, forming a larger Frankish people. But in this era, still early, they were like separate branches of the same ancient tree, growing in different directions but sharing the same roots. Imagine a morning among the Salians. Dew covers the grass. The air smells of wet earth and river reeds. Fishermen push wooden boats into the water, dipping simple paddles into the calm surface. Children run along the shore, following the gentle waves. Women grind grain with smooth stones, their movements steady and rhythmic. The day begins with soft sounds, birdsong, water, and quiet voices. Now imagine a morning among the Ripuarians. The air is cooler. Shaded by tall trees, men walk along forest paths carrying spears, both hunters and protectors of their land. Smoke curls upward from cooking fires inside long halls. Blacksmiths hammer heated iron, shaping tools and weapons with slow, practiced movements. A group of elders gathers outside, discussing matters of the tribe, where to hunt, who will patrol the borders, what news has come from the Rhine. Both groups live very different daily lives, yet both share the same cultural heartbeat. The early pulse of a people who will one day rise together. To the Romans, these groups seemed mysterious, sometimes peaceful, sometimes fierce, unpredictable, but undeniably strong. They respected the strength of their warriors, the loyalty within their clans, and the endurance shaped by hard winters and ancient traditions. And so, gradually, the name Franks became associated with these tribes, a name that may have meant the free people, a name that would one day echo across medieval Europe, but for now, existed only as a whisper in Roman writings and the soft speech of tribal gatherings. Let yourself drift for a moment. Imagine the sound of a light rain falling softly upon the forest canopy. Each drop lands gently on leaves, branches, and earth, creating a soothing, steady rhythm. This is the sound that early Frankish generations knew intimately: rain, wind, fire, rivers, the natural music of their world. Frankish identity, in this early period, grew not from grand monuments or written annals, but from the quiet endurance of shared life. The way people farmed together, hunted together, defended their homes together, and honored their ancestors through stories told beneath the glow of firelight as Rome continued to change. Struggling with pressures from within and from distant frontiers, the Franks observed. They were patient. They did not rush into conflict. A slow understanding formed. The world of Rome was powerful, but it was beginning to strain. The world beyond Rome, the world of forests and tribes, was gaining strength. But that story belongs to later parts. For now, Part 3 gently closes in the same calm place where it began, in quiet settlements nestled among forests and rivers, where the earliest Frankish identity took shape not through war or ambition, but through community, tradition, and ancient rhythms of life. Breathe softly. Let the forest fade slowly into stillness, and when you are ready, we will continue into Part 4, where the Franks begin to rise, their power gradually increasing as the Roman world grows weaker around them. Before we drift deeper into the next chapter of the Frankish story, take a moment to relax your breathing again. Let the air flow in slowly, and release it even more slowly. Allow a soft warmth to settle across your shoulders, your arms, your chest, and let your mind open gently to the calm unfolding of history. We continue now with the Franks standing quietly in the shadow of the Roman world. Not yet the mighty force they would one day become, but no longer a collection of small, hidden tribes. Instead, they are beginning to grow, to change, to recognize their strength, and to feel the early stirrings of a larger identity. In this part of the story, the world around them shifts in ways both subtle and powerful, and the Franks find themselves moving slowly, almost imperceptibly, toward a future that neither they nor the Romans could fully understand. Imagine once again the old forests of the north, endless canopies of oak and beech, branches interwoven like ancient fingers holding the sky. Sunlight filters through the leaves in long golden beams, touching the forest floor with warm patches of light. In the distance, the call of a bird echoes softly between the trunks. The air smells of pine resin, river water, and rich earth. This land has shaped the Franks for generations, and even as the world around them changes, the forest remains their anchor, their sanctuary, and their teacher. It is within these woods that the Franks begin to grow in number. Families expand, villages widen, new settlements are carved out of clearings as trees are gently felled and homes are raised. The Franks do not build cities like the Romans, but their villages become more organized, with paths worn smooth by years of footsteps, communal gathering places, and buildings crafted with more skill than before. Their smiths forge stronger iron tools. Their hunters learn the habits of the land with ever greater clarity. Their elders preserve more stories, more traditions, more memories, and still, the Roman Empire stands nearby, a giant whose presence can be felt even from the deep forests. To the Franks, Rome is like a distant storm cloud, sometimes soft, sometimes threatening, always immense. Roman soldiers march along their frontier roads, boots striking the earth in perfect rhythm. Roman merchants travel between towns carrying goods wrapped in cloth and tied with cords. Roman envoys ride horses along the Rhine, speaking with governors, commanding officers, and tribal representatives. The Franks watch them, sometimes from afar, sometimes up close, trying to understand a world so unlike their own in these centuries. Rome remains powerful, but its strength is changing, shifting like a great animal that has grown old yet still possesses sharp claws. Border forts line the Rhine. Their thick stone walls rise above the riverbank. Inside, soldiers sharpen blades, repair shields, practice formations under the command of their officers. Smoke rises from their kitchens. Horses stamp in their stables. The scent of oil, iron, and campfire wood hangs in the air. At night, torches illuminate the ramparts as guards keep watch across the water. The Franks see these forts often. Sometimes they approach in peace, offering furs, amber, or crafted goods in exchange for Roman metal, wine, pottery, or salt. Other times they approach as warriors, not in full war, but in small raiding bands driven by hunger, need, or the changing tides of tribal alliances. The Romans, though disciplined, grow increasingly uncertain, not because they fear the Franks as a great unified force, but because the Roman world itself is beginning to crack, political instability spreads, armies fight one another for power, economies strain under the weight of wars, and distant frontiers pull Roman attention in too many directions. The Franks, living close to nature and far from imperial politics, do not seek to understand the complexity of Roman crises, but they feel the effects. They sense the weakening of the empire, slowly, like an animal sensing that a once powerful predator is beginning to tire. Now imagine a calm Frankish village on the edge of a river near the frontier. It is late autumn. Leaves carpet the ground in shades of gold and bronze. A thin fog hangs between the trees. In the village, fires burn in longhouses, casting warm, steady light on the faces of families gathered inside. Men sit repairing leather boots and sharpening tools. Women weave cloth, their hands moving with gentle, practiced rhythm. Children listen as elders share stories, not just of the present world, but of ancestors long gone, of spirits in the forest, of gods who guide the tribe, of omens in the stars. On this evening, a messenger enters the hall. Not a Roman messenger, a Frankish one, carrying news from the frontier. Roman patrols have grown thinner. Some forts appear abandoned. Other forts are occupied but tense. Rumors spread that Roman legions have been pulled south to fight elsewhere, leaving the Rhine less guarded than before. The elders listen. They do not react with excitement or fear. They react with quiet thoughtfulness, for they are wise enough to know that the weakening of a mighty empire can bring both opportunities and dangers. As the Franks observe, they learn. They are adaptable, more adaptable than Rome. They do not rely on vast systems of administration. They do not depend on long-distance supply chains. They live from their land, their traditions, and their families. This adaptability becomes their strength. Yet, even as Roman power flickers, the Franks continue to grow not only in number but in unity. The Salians and Ripuarians, once distant from one another, begin to feel a shared identity, a sense that they belong to something larger than their tribe or village. This is the quiet birth of the Frankish people. Not through conquest, not through decrees, not through written laws, but through centuries of gradual merging, shared experience, mutual defense, and cultural blending. Imagine a great gathering of Frankish warriors in a forest clearing. Hundreds of men stand quietly among the trees, torches lighting the night. Elders speak of alliances. Leaders discuss boundaries, agreements, and responsibilities. Hands are raised as decisions are made collectively through ritual, respect, and consensus. This is not yet a kingdom. There are no crowns, no thrones, no royal halls, but there is unity. A unity born from the land they share and the challenges they face. As the fire crackles and sparks drift upward into the dark sky, the Franks feel the early pulse of something new, a future that calls to them softly, like distant thunder. And beyond the forest, beyond the river, Rome sleeps uneasily, unaware that its future rulers are gathering quietly in wooden halls lit by fire. The night grows deeper, the forest grows quieter, and the first embers of Frankish destiny begin to glow. Let them glow softly in your mind as you drift a little deeper into rest. Before we begin, allow yourself a moment to settle again. Take a deep, gentle breath in, and let it fall softly out. Wherever you are, let the space around you grow quieter, deeper, and softer, because in this part, we drift into a moment of subtle transformation. A time when the Franks slowly begin to step beyond the forests of their ancestors and enter a wider world. I impart for we stood with the Franks in the shadow of the Roman frontier, watching, listening, noticing the gradual weakening of the empire that had towered over Europe for centuries. Now, in part 5, we explore what happens next when the Franks begin to move, not as raiders, but as settlers, not as scattered tribes, but as a growing people. Close your eyes, if you wish, and imagine once more the land of the early Franks. The forests still stretch endlessly, but something is different now. Villages feel larger, paths between settlements grow more defined. Alliances between Salians and Ripuarians are stronger, and beneath everything, like a slow river deep beneath the soil, there is a sense of change. The year is not precisely known, because the Franks did not write these times in manuscripts or stone. Their story in this era survives through fragments, Roman mentions, archaeological remains, and the quiet echoes of early Germanic memory. But the transformation itself is clear. For generations, the Franks lived east of the Rhine. Now, they begin to cross it. but not with the thunder of armies, not with conquest or destruction, but softly, gradually, like a tide that rises without being noticed until the shore has changed forever. Imagine a Frankish family standing at the edge of the Rhine at dawn, a man, a woman, children, and a small group of relatives and friends. Behind them, the forest. Before them, the water, wide, shimmering, quietly shifting in the morning light. They load wooden boats with baskets of grain, bundles of hides, tools wrapped in cloth, and the simplest treasures of their households. The boats are not elegant like Roman vessels. They are carved from single tree trunks, sturdy and practical, shaped by hand without measurements, guided by instinct passed down across generations as mist drifts across the river's surface. They push off, paddles cutting gently into the water. The current carries them westward, toward new land, new soil, new beginnings. They are not alone. Over decades, many Frankish groups make this crossing. Some move into the Roman territory of Gaul with permission, as federated allies. Some move quietly, without invitation, into lands that Romans have trouble defending. Some arrive as soldiers serving Rome itself, rewarded with the right to settle. Others come simply because the land on the other side is open, fertile, and less touched by war than the frontier. But the movement is so slow that Rome barely notices at first. Just families, just small groups, just a few villages. Nothing threatening, nothing unusual. Yet slowly, almost silently, the landscape of Roman Gaul changes. Fields that had once belonged to Roman estates now hold Frankish cottages. Roads that once echoed with Roman wagons now hear the footsteps of Germanic farmers carrying bundles of grain. Markets once filled with Latin voices now include the deep, rhythmic speech of the Franks. Imagine a small Roman town on the frontier. Not a great city, not a place of marble columns or grand theaters, just a modest settlement with wooden houses, a little forum, a small bathhouse, and a simple stone wall that in earlier centuries. This town was filled with Roman officials, merchants, and farmers. But as Rome begins to weaken, many residents leave, seeking security in larger cities. Houses are abandoned, fields go untended. The wall cracks in places. The town slowly falls into quiet. And then, Frankish families arrive. They repair roofs using timber from the forest. They plant barley, rye, and wheat in the empty fields. Children run between the deserted Roman houses, turning them into places of play and curiosity. The bathhouse, once a symbol of Roman life, becomes a storage building. The forum becomes a gathering place for assemblies. Latin words fade from the streets, replaced by Germanic speech. This is not conquest. This is replacement, a quiet transformation. The Franks become a new people in a new landscape, by the mid-4th century. Roman officials begin to realize what is happening. Not an invasion, but a slow settling of Germanic people inside Roman territory. The Salians settle near the region that would one day be known as the Netherlands and northern Belgium. The Ripuarians move along the Middle Rhine, around the future city of Cologne. Other Frankish groups drift into the valleys of the Meuse and Scheldt, but even as settlers, they remain deeply connected to their traditions. Imagine a Frankish gathering in Gaul. Villagers sit in a large wooden hall, the scent of roasted meat and burning wood filling. The air, torches flicker against timber beams darkened by years of smoke. Leaders discuss their new lands, how to divide fields, how to share pastures, how to handle Roman neighbors, how to preserve their customs in a new environment. There are no kings yet, only chieftains chosen for their wisdom, courage, and the loyalty they inspire. These leaders do not rule through written laws or official decrees. They rule through presence, through the respect earned over many seasons of leadership. Outside the hall, the wind moves through tall grass. The night is cool but peaceful. The stars shine above the land, the same stars their ancestors saw across the Rhine. The Franks do not lose themselves in this new land. They bring their world with them, their beliefs, their architecture, their stories, their assemblies, their traditions of kinship and honor. But as they settle deeper into Gaul, something unexpected happens. They begin to adopt parts of Roman life as well. Not because Rome forces them, but because the Franks are practical, observant, and adaptive. They take Roman tools and use them with their own hands. They farm Roman crops using Frankish techniques. They travel on Roman roads but follow their own customs. They forge Roman iron into Frankish weapons. They adopt certain Roman words, blending them into their Germanic tongue. This blending is not dramatic.it is gentle, natural, and inevitable. A cultural exchange born from proximity, not conflict. The Franks begin to shape a new identity, something neither Roman nor purely Germanic, but a mixture of both, a way of life that will eventually give birth to medieval Europe. Meanwhile, Rome grows weaker still. Internal conflicts strain its power. Borders become harder to defend. Legions are stretched thin across vast distances. Imagine a Roman fort along the Rhine in the late 4th century. Once, it was filled with disciplined soldiers, marching in rows, armor shining in the sun. Now, only a few remain. Their armor is worn, supplies are irregular. Their commander worries not about glory, but survival. Across the river, Frankish villages thrive. Children grow strong. Fields are fertile. Communities deepen their roots. The contrast becomes clearer every year. Rome aging, the Franks rising. This is the era when the Franks move from observers to participants in the drama of late antiquity. They begin to fill the spaces Rome can no longer hold. They become soldiers in Roman armies, farmers in Roman lands, and guardians of frontier regions. Rome cannot defend alone in time. They will become Rome's allies and later Rome's successors, but not yet. For now, in Part 5, the transformation is still gentle, still unfolding like a slow dawn over a quiet plain. Imagine night falling across Frankish settlements in Gaul. Smoke drifts softly into the sky. Dogs bark in the distance. Elders sit beneath the stars, speaking quietly in a language that lingers at the edge of recorded history. The Rhine flows steadily far away. Roman towns lie quiet, half forgotten, and the Franks grow a little stronger in the darkness. Breathe slowly. Let your thoughts float like leaves on a drifting river, and when you're ready, we will move into Part 6, where the Franks rise even more, forming early dynasties, shaping new territories, and stepping into the vacuum left by Rome's fading power. Take one slow breath in, and let it flow out like a calm river moving through a quiet valley. Let your body soften where you sit or lie. Let your mind drift lightly, without effort, into the peaceful rhythm of the story. We continue now into a time when the Roman world, once mighty and unbreakable, begins to tremble beneath its own weight. And into that trembling world, the Franks step gently, not with sudden violence, but with the steady persistence of a people shaped by forests, rivers, winters, and patient endurance. That I end Part 5, we watched the Franks settle quietly inside Roman Gaul, filling the spaces Rome could no longer protect. Now, in Part 6, the story deepens, for Rome grows weaker, and the Franks grow stronger. The fall of an empire is not a single moment. It is a long twilight, a slow dimming of light, a gradual fading of power, and throughout that twilight, the Franks walk steadily forward. Imagine now the late 4th century. The Roman Empire still stands, but its walls crack. Its armies are stretched thin, its borders tremble, its cities whisper with uncertainty. Inside these fading lands, the Franks live, settle, farm, hunt, marry, build, and grow. Let us return to their world. Picture a large Frankish settlement at dusk. Wooden houses circle a central open area where fires burn softly. Smoke curls slowly into the sky. Children chase each other between the homes. Dogs rest by doorways. Women grind grain at stone querns, their movements slow and steady. Men sit in small groups, sharpening tools, cleaning hunting spears, and speaking quietly about the news brought from traders or travelers around them. The land is peaceful. But beyond the horizon, the world is changing. Roman merchants arrive less often. Roman coins lose value. Roman governors request help from Frankish leaders, asking them to guard roads, escort wagons, and watch frontier paths Rome can no longer watch alone. This is how the Franks begin to hold power, not by seizing it forcefully, but by stepping into responsibilities once held by Rome. Imagine a Roman official riding into a Frankish village. His cloak is worn. His horse is tired that he dismounts and requests an audience with the local chieftain. Inside the long wooden hall, the fire crackles softly as elders gather. The Roman explains that a nearby fort has too few soldiers, that he asks the Franks to help defend a road or escort a shipment, that in return he offers gold or land or recognition. The Franks consider his words carefully. They understand the moment. They know Rome is not the power it once was, but they accept because the Franks are practical. Protecting the region benefits them as much as it benefits Rome. This cooperation shapes the next stage of Frankish identity. They become not just settlers, not just neighbors, but partners in the defense of Gaul. And slowly, the line between Roman Gaul and Frankish Gaul begins to blur. Imagine now a Roman road, long, straight, stretching across open fields. Its paved stones, once meticulously maintained, are cracked in places. Grass grows between them. A Roman patrol once marched here every day. Now, perhaps once a week. But Frankish travelers pass more frequently. Families with wagons, hunters carrying game, farmers delivering goods to markets. The road is Roman. But the life surrounding it becomes Frankish. During this era, many Frankish warriors take service in the Roman army, either as allies or as regular soldiers. They learn Roman techniques of warfare. They receive Roman armor. They fight in Roman campaigns. But they do not lose their identity. They bring their own ways, their own loyalty to kin, their own sense of honor. And when they return home, they bring knowledge that will shape the future of Frankish power. Now picture a Frankish warrior returning from Roman service. He arrives at his village wearing a Roman-style helmet, but with Frankish designs carved into the metal. His cloak is dyed with Roman colors, but fastened with a Germanic brooch. He speaks Latin phrases mixed with his native tongue. Children follow him, wide-eyed. He brings stories of distant cities, of great armies, of the declining empire. These stories spread from village to village, shaping a new awareness among the Franks. They now know the scale of the world beyond the forest. They understand Rome's weakness. They understand their own strength. Meanwhile, Rome's politics grow chaotic, generals rise and fall. Emperors rule for months instead of years. Armies are divided between loyalties. Borders collapse in distant regions, and the Franks, watching from within Gaul, become witnesses and participants in this unraveling. Imagine now the winter of a year near the turn of the 5th century. Snow blankets the ground. Around Frankish villages, ice forms along the riverbanks. Inside the longhouses, fires burn bright and warm. Families gather close, wrapped in thick woolen cloaks. Elders speak of new arrivals in the land. Vandals, Alans, Suebi, tribes fleeing pressures further east, crossing the Rhine in desperate waves. This moment is not legend, it is recorded in Roman history. The great crossing of 460 on that winter night. Many tribes crossed the frozen Rhine and swept into Gaul. Some passed through, some fought, some settled. Rome could not stop them, but the Franks could. When the tribes attempted to move north into Frankish lands, the Franks resisted fiercely. Roman writers describe battles where Frankish warriors fought with tremendous discipline and courage, striking down enemies who sought to take their lands. It is one of the first times Rome openly praises the Franks, not as barbarians, but but as defenders of Gaul. This moment changes everything. The Franks are no longer just settlers. They are protectors of the region, partners of Rome, and their reputation grows. Imagine a Frankish chieftain standing before his warriors after a winter battle. Snow falls gently around them. Their breath creates soft clouds in the cold air. Their cloaks are heavy with frost, but their spirits are strong. They have defended their homes. They have protected the valleys, rivers, and forests that hold the memories of their ancestors. Their victory strengthens their unity, and it strengthens their position in Gaul. Meanwhile, Roman Gaul continues to change. Many Roman landowners leave their villas. Some move to safer regions. Some abandon their estates entirely. The Franks move into these lands, repurposing them for farming, cattle, and settlement. It is not dramatic. It is not violent. It is gradual, like vines slowly covering abandoned marble walls. By the early 5th century, the Franks are woven into the fabric of Gaul. Villages expand. New communities form. Trade networks grow. Frankish leaders gain authority, not only over their own people but over mixed communities of Romans and Germanic settlers. The Roman Empire in the West continues to darken. Cities shrink. Roads decay. Armies grow thin, but the Franks remain steady, strong, resilient, deeply rooted in the land. Imagine now a spring morning in this changing world. The sun rises over fields plowed by Frankish farmers. Vines climb the old stone walls of abandoned Roman villas. Children speak a blend of Latin and Germanic words. Markets fill with both Roman pottery and Frankish crafts. The church bells in some towns ring softly, for Christianity is spreading, and Frankish leaders listen, curious about this new faith. Everything is shifting. Everything is merging. And the Franks stand at the center of this transformation. By the end of this era, Rome still exists in name, but its authority is thin as a shadow at dusk. The Franks, however, are rising like dawn. As you breathe gently now, let your mind rest in this moment of history, the quiet merging of two worlds, the fading of an empire, the strengthening of a people who will soon step into greatness. Before we wander farther into the unfolding story of the Franks, take a moment to let your mind grow still again. Let your breath become soft and natural. Let your thoughts drift like mist across a calm river. Feel the softness of the present moment and allow yourself to sink into the quiet flow of history. In Part 6, we walked through the fading twilight of Roman Gaul, where Roman authority weakened and Frankish strength grew steadily in its place. Now, in Part 7, we enter a period of transition, a time when the Franks begin to form something new, something larger than tribes and settlements. They begin to shape leadership not just for villages or clans, but for entire peoples. We step into the early age of Frankish chieftains, men who rise not through inheritance or royal decree, but through the slow accumulation of respect, alliances, and influence. No kings yet, but the beginning of men who could become kings. Let us drift into that world. Imagine the early 5th century, a time when the Roman West is collapsing like an ancient tree slowly leaning in the wind, losing strength with every passing storm. The Franks, long settled in Gaul and the Rhine regions, sense this shifting landscape. They understand that the world around them is changing, and they begin to choose leaders who can guide them through the turbulence. These leaders are not yet famous. Their names are faint in history, like distant echoes, but their presence matters. Picture a Frankish gathering deep in the forests of northern Gaul. That a vast clearing has been prepared for an assembly. A thing, the traditional Germanic meeting where decisions are made. Hundreds of men stand together, wearing simple woolen tunics, cloaks, of fur, leather belts decorated with bronze, and iron weapons crafted by local smiths. Women observe from the edges of the gathering, tending fires, preparing food, listening with care. Children watch in silence, absorbing traditions that have shaped their people for generations. The center stands a man chosen to speak. a respected elder with a powerful voice, braided hair, and a steady gaze. He speaks of the dangers on their borders. Roman commanders begging for assistance, other tribes moving unpredictably across the region, and new threats rising further east. His words carry weight because they reflect the slow changes everyone feels. The Franks have grown too numerous to remain simple tribes. They need structure. They need leaders of vision and strength. They need unity that goes beyond clans and families, and so, early leaders begin to emerge. Men chosen not as kings, but as chiefs. Princes, military commanders, and alliance forgers point. One of the earliest groups to gain prominence are the Salian Franks. The Salians, settled in the region of modern Belgium and the southern Netherlands, grow particularly influential during this period. Their leaders establish themselves as strong, adaptable, and well-connected, able to negotiate with Romans, fight off threats, and maintain unity among their people. Imagine a Salian chieftain sitting in his longhouse at night that a fire burns softly at the center. The hall is filled with the scent of pine wood and cooked venison. Warriors stand near the walls, silent but watchful. The chieftain speaks with visiting elders from other Frankish villages. They discuss land, alliances, marriage ties, and threats from neighboring tribes. It is in these discussions, these gatherings, that the earliest structures of Frankish political life begin to form. No writing, no formal laws, just agreements, spoken oaths, shared responsibility, and the wisdom of elders. Over time, certain leaders gain more influence than others. Rome, weak and fragmented, begins to rely on Frankish leaders to maintain order in Gaul. Roman officials write letters, send envoys, and attempt to form alliances with the most powerful Frankish chieftains. They offer land, gold, honorary titles, and recognition. Some Frankish leaders accept, some refuse, but all understand the opportunity. The Franks begin to take control of regions once governed by Roman officials. They maintain order. They defend against raids. They gather tribute. They negotiate with neighboring tribes, and the people begin to look to them as sources of stability, strength, and protection. These early leaders, though half hidden in the shadows of history, form the bridge between small clan-based societies and the great Frankish kingdoms that will soon rise. Imagine a Frankish leader standing before his people after returning from a raid or a military campaign. He wears a cloak fastened with a large bronze brooch. His hair is tied back. He carries a sword with a Roman hilt and a Germanic blade. Around him stand dozens of warriors, their shields decorated with simple painted designs. Circles, lines, spirals, women and children gather behind them, listening with pride as he speaks of victory, defense, or alliances formed. In moments like these, respect grows, loyalty strengthens. Authority takes root. It is also in this time that early Frankish law begins to take shape, not yet written, but spoken with clarity and passed through memory. The Salic Law, which will later be written down in the Merovingian era, has its origins here. It is oral. It is remembered by elders. It is based on compensation rather than punishment, balance rather than retribution, and community rather than isolation. But in this age, the law is not a book, it is a living voice. Now imagine a quiet morning in a Frankish village. Mist covers the ground like a soft blanket. Women milk cattle. Men tend to tools and prepare for work in the fields. Children gather berries in the forest edge, and elders sit together outside a longhouse, discussing how to settle a dispute between two families. There are no courts. The assembly is the law. The community is the judge. Fairness is the goal. This quiet justice slowly shapes the character of the Franks. Meanwhile, the Roman world continues to crumble. Cities shrink, administration weakens, soldiers desert their posts. Local populations turn to the Franks, not to Roman officials, for leadership, protection, and stability. This is the moment when Frankish leaders gain real power. The Salian chiefs expand their influence into regions like Tournai, Cambrai, and northern Gaul. The Ripuarian chiefs gained strength along the Middle Rhine, around Cologne and the river valleys. Slowly, the regions begin to divide into spheres of Frankish influence. Imagine the border between Salian and Roman lands in the early 5th century. Once it was marked by Roman walls, patrols, and watchtowers. Now, that border is less a line and more a transition from Roman villas to Frankish farms, from Latin speech to Germanic words, from Roman laws to Frankish customs. And where the world mixes, cultures blend. Frankish leaders adopt elements of Roman life, titles, armor styles, coins, and practices. Romans living under Frankish rule adopt Germanic ways, social structures, kinship customs, and spoken language. Neither side disappears, they merge, they transform. And out of this merging, a new world begins to form. By the middle of the 5th century, the Franks have become the dominant Germanic force in northern Gaul. Their leaders command respect. Their warriors command fear. Their settlements command territory. Their presence is unmistakable, and yet, something is still missing. A single leader strong enough to unite all the Franks, a figure who could step beyond the role of chieftain and become something greater, a king. That moment is coming soon, very soon, and the world will change forever. But for now, in the soft quiet of Part 7, we remain in this gentle twilight before kingship, a time of councils, elders, alliances, and slow growth. A time when Frankish leaders rise from the forests, becoming figures of stability in a world losing its center. A time when the Franks begin to sense, though not yet fully understand, that the land of Gaul may one day become theirs. Breathe softly. Let the night settle around this ancient world, and when you are ready, we will move to Part 8, where the Franks finally approach the rise of the Merovingian dynasty, and the figure who will change everything begins to emerge from the shadows of history. Before we travel deeper into this next chapter, allow yourself a moment to settle again. Let your breath fall into a slow rhythm, like gentle waves brushing against a quiet shoreline. Let your body become heavier, more comfortable, and let your mind drift softly, preparing to walk through the peaceful shadows of the ancient world. We rejoin the Franks in a time when the Roman West has grown fragile. A vast, old structure worn by centuries of wars, political struggles, economic tension, and the constant pressure of frontier peoples. The empire still stands, but only barely. Its walls are cracked. Its armies are thin. Its governors write letters asking for help rather than giving orders. It is a world where authority fades like a sunset slipping behind distant hills. Into this fading world step the Franks. Slowly, quietly, steadily. Their chieftains, once leaders of small tribes scattered along the Rhine, are becoming more influential. Their warriors, hardened by life in forests and frontier lands, now carry Roman-style weapons beside traditional Germanic ones. Their settlements in Gaul grow wider, deeper, more rooted in Roman soil. Their families increase. Their alliances expand. Their leaders begin to speak not just for villages, but for entire regions. Imagine a wide landscape at dawn, somewhere in northern Gaul. Mist lies thick over the fields. Grass bends under the weight of a cool night's moisture. In the distance, a Roman villa sits abandoned, walls cracked, roof partially collapsed, ivy creeping slowly across the stone. Once, a wealthy Roman family lived there. Slaves tended the gardens. Merchants visited the courtyard. Lamps glowed behind colored glass. But now, the villa stands empty, silent except for the sounds of wind and distant birds. Yet not all is silent. In the nearby fields, Frankish farmers work the land, plowing soil, tending cattle, mending fences. Children run along paths once walked by Roman servants. A Frankish woman draws water from a well built generations earlier by Roman craftsmen. A Frankish elder sits on a stone that once formed part of the villa's foundation. He sharpens a wooden tool, watching the sunrise with peaceful patience. This scene repeats across Gaul during this era. Roman structures remain, like fossils of an older age, but the life that fills the land is increasingly Frankish. Farther east, near the Rhine, Frankish warriors stand guard along riverbanks and forest paths. Their shields are decorated with simple patterns: circles, crosses, lines. Their cloaks are made of wool dyed in earthy tones. Their swords rest in leather scabbards. They watch the water with calm vigilance, not in fear but in confidence. This land is theirs now. They protect it not for Rome, but for their own families and future. Yet Rome and the Franks are still connected, sometimes as allies, sometimes as uneasy neighbors, sometimes as partners in defense. Imagine a Roman general arriving at a Frankish settlement. His armor is polished but dented from years of campaigns. His cloak carries the dust of long roads. He dismounts from his horse and approaches the long house of a local Frankish leader. Inside, the hall is warm with firelight. Frankish elders sit on benches of wood and fir. They greet the Roman politely, not with submission, but with calm dignity. The general explains that Rome needs help once again. Another region is in trouble. Another army has been diverted. Another group of raiders threatens the countryside. The Frankish leader listens with patience. He knows what this means. Rome's diminishing power is opening doors for the Franks. But he also knows that war brings danger to his people, so he agrees. Not for Rome, but for the protection of Gaul, where his people now live. Over and over, this pattern repeats. Roman authority fades. Frankish responsibility grows. The balance begins to tip. Meanwhile, in the deeper regions of Gaul, Roman towns experience their last years of life as Roman communities. Their streets are quieter, their markets smaller, their walls unrestored. But Frankish groups begin to integrate with their inhabitants. Some Romans marry into Frankish families. Others adopt Frankish customs. And the Franks, in turn, adopt Roman practices, ironworking techniques, farming methods, even aspects of administration. A blending of worlds takes place, not through war, but through necessity and proximity. Now picture a quiet Roman city in the early 5th century. Its bathhouse still stands, though water no longer flows in its marble pools. Its forum still holds a statue of an emperor, though the face is worn away. Its amphitheater lies empty, overgrown with weeds. But in its homes, Frankish families live alongside Roman inhabitants. Children speak a mixture of Latin and a Germanic tongue. Markets trade Frankish-made tools for Roman pottery, Roman wine for Frankish hides. Church bells ring in the morning, and elders from both cultures meet in shaded courtyards to discuss their shared concerns. This blending is the quiet foundation of medieval Europe. IT is not dramatic, IT is not sudden, IT is gradual, patient, soft, like water carving a landscape over centuries. During this period, Frankish leaders begin to take on more formal roles. They negotiate treaties. They manage territories. They organize warriors into groups larger than tribal bands. They gather wealth through tribute and alliances. Some even receive Roman titles, comes dux, magister militum, not as Romans, but as powerful Frankish lords. Imagine a Frankish leader holding a Roman scroll sealed with wax. He cannot read it. Literacy is still rare among the Franks, but he knows the meaning. Rome recognizes him, acknowledges him, needs him, and his people notice. His authority grows, his household expands. His warriors pledge loyalty to him not just from kinship, but from trust in his leadership. These early leaders pave the way for something new, the formation of a dynasty, an unbroken line of rulers who will turn Frankish strength into a kingdom. But the moment of monarchy has not yet arrived. IT approaches slowly, like a distant storm or like dawn spreading its first pale light across a dark horizon. Before the rise of the first Frankish kings, something else happens. A final weakening of Roman power, a shift that opens the path for Frankish dominance. Imagine the year 476 that the Western Roman Empire collapses. Its last emperor abdicates. Its armies scatter. Its provinces fall under the control of local powers, and in Gaul, the vacuum left behind is filled not by chaos, but by the Franks. Steady, numerous, organized, unified more than ever before. This is the world into which a young Frankish leader will soon rise. Not yet mentioned here, not yet named, but approaching like a calm, unstoppable tide. His emergence will change everything. He will unify the Salian Franks. He will defeat rival tribes. He will take Roman. Gaul is his inheritance. He will accept a new faith. He will become the first true Frankish king. But that story belongs to the next part. For now, let your mind rest in this quiet twilight. The last decades before kingship, before crowns and kingdoms, before history knows the name that will shape centuries. Feel the land grow silent. Feel the forests breathe. Feel the calm settling over ancient Gaul as the Franks prepare to cross from the world of tribes into the world of monarchs. When you are ready, we will move into part 9, where the first great Frankish king finally rises, and the Merovingian age begins. Take one slow breath in and let it flow out gently as we step deeper into the final twilight of the Roman West, and into the dawn of a new power rising quietly from the forests and rivers of Gaul. In the previous part, we watched Rome fall. Not with a single catastrophic crash, but with a long, slow sight. We watched the Franks expand, organize, settle, and take responsibility where Rome could not. A world faded, and a new one waited to form. I end this part. The new world takes shape in the hands of a young leader whose name history remembers clearly. Clovis. But before Clovis becomes a king, before battles and alliances, before crowns and baptisms, we must return to the quiet world from which he emerged, the deep forests and wide river valleys of the Salian Franks. Imagine the land at dawn. A pale mist rises from dewy grass. The sound of a river flows steadily in the distance, calm and constant. Birds are beginning their morning calls in the treetops. A large wooden hall stands at the center of a small settlement, its roof high, its beams darkened by years of smoke, its walls adorned with trophies of hunts and signs of ancient tradition. Inside that hall, the first generation of emerging Frankish rulers, the early Merovingians, gather. Their leader at this time is Childeric, father of Clovis. Childeric is not a legendary king yet, not a fully formed monarch as we think of today. He is a warrior chieftain, respected, feared, admired. A man who leads his people in battle, negotiates with Roman officials, and maintains alliances among the Franks. His long hair, a symbol of Frankish royal authority, falls over his shoulders. His cloak is fastened by a brooch of gold brought from distant lands. Beside him lies a spear, its iron head shaped by skilled smiths, its shaft polished smooth with use. This is the world into which Clovis is born, a world of transition, where tribes are becoming nations, leaders becoming kings, and the Franks becoming the dominant force in Gaul. Now imagine a young Clovis walking through the settlement, not as a warrior yet, not as a king, but as a boy learning the ways of his people. He watches elders debate matters of land and law. He watches warriors train in the clearing outside the longhouse, their shields clashing softly, their movements fluid and strong. He listens to stories told by bards, stories of ancestors who crossed the Rhine, of battles fought against neighboring tribes, of alliances made with Rome during its long decline. Though Clovis has no written history to study, his education is rich, woven from memory, tradition, and the ancient voices of his people. As years pass, Childeric's leadership strengthens the Salian Franks. He controls key territories in northern Gaul, Tournai, Cambrai, and the surrounding regions. He commands respect from both Romans and Franks. He forms crucial alliances that will lay the foundation for Clovis's future. But nothing lasts forever. One day, Childeric's time comes to an end. He is buried in a tomb filled with precious weapons, gold brooches, horse gear, and royal symbols. Objects now displayed in museums, silent witnesses to the birth of the Frankish kingdom. Into this moment of transition steps Clovis. Very young, but ready to lead, he inherits a people already strong, already unified, already prepared for something greater. But he must still transform them. He must unite the Franks, defeat rival kings, expand territories, and give his people not just identity, but destiny. Imagine Clovis standing before his warriors for the first time as leader. The morning sun touches his face with pale golden light. His long hair flows down his back, the sacred sign of Frankish royalty. He holds a spear in his hand, not as a symbol of war, but as a symbol of authority. Around him stand hundreds of men. Farmers turned soldiers, hunters turned defenders, warriors bound to him by loyalty, kinship, and faith in his future. They see not a boy, but a leader chosen by tradition, strengthened by lineage, and guided by the hopes of the people. His first challenge is to secure his position among the Franks themselves. The Salian Franks are strong, but neighboring Frankish groups, especially the Ripuarians, have their own leaders, their own ambitions, and their own sense of honor. Clovis must prove himself worthy of unity. And so, he begins his leadership with a series of careful alliances, subtle negotiations, and displays of strength that reassure his people and warn his rivals. Now, imagine a council gathering in Clovis's hall. Warriors sit on benches of wood and fir. Elders speak in low, rhythmic tones. The fire crackles softly in the center of the hall, sending sparks twisting upward. Clovis listens carefully, weighing every word. He is young, but his presence is steady. He understands that leadership is not loud. It is patient, attentive, measured. His warriors trust him. His elders guide him, and his people believe in him. Outside, the world is changing. The Roman West is gone. Yet Roman cities still stand, weakened, but full of people. Local Roman elites still hold influence, though far less than before. Other Germanic groups, Visigoths, Burgundians, Alemanni, compete for land and power. Clovis steps into this fragmented landscape with clarity. His goal is not mere survival. His goal is supremacy. But he advances slowly, patiently, always watching the land, the people, the opportunities. Imagine Frankish scouts returning to Clovis with news from the south. There, horses move quietly through forest paths. Dust clings to their cloaks. They report that the Visigoths control a wide portion of Gaul, that the Burgundians grow stronger in the southeast, that Roman bishops still guide towns and cities, and that local populations are ready for a protector, ready for a leader who brings stability. Clovis listens. He understands. He sees what others do not, that the land is ready for a new ruler. But before he challenges other kingdoms, he must unify the Franks themselves. This begins with diplomacy. Clovis meets with Ripuarian leaders. He attends feasts, gives gifts, forms alliances sealed with oaths spoken beneath sacred trees. He respects traditions, his own and those of neighboring Frankish groups. He speaks with calm authority, cultivating unity not through fear, but through shared purpose. At the same time, he demonstrates strength. He secures borders. He leads small campaigns to defend Frankish lands. He gains victories that strengthen his reputation. Every success builds his legitimacy. Every alliance extends his influence. Clovis understands something fundamental. To unify the Franks, he must become not just a leader, but the leader. As we drift deeper into this peaceful narration, imagine the slow transformation taking place across Gaul. Fields once plowed by Roman farmers now thrive under Frankish hands. Markets once trading Roman goods now fill with Frankish crafts. Small churches ring their bells each morning, not for Rome, but for communities blended from Roman and Frankish life. The new world is forming, quietly, naturally, steadily, and at its center stands Clovis, a young ruler who has not yet reached the height of his power, but who already carries the weight of destiny. He gathers warriors, he forms alliances, he expands influence, He stabilizes territories. He learns the languages of diplomacy and war. But something greater still lies ahead. A moment that will transform the Franks forever and set Clovis apart from all leaders. Before him, his conversion, his victory over rival tribes, his unification of the Franks, his establishment of a kingdom that will shape the next 1,000 years. But those moments belong to the next part. For now, rest in the calm world of early Clovis, a world of forests and rivers, of councils and traditions, of careful steps toward unity, of a kingdom waiting to be born. Let the ancient landscape soften in your imagination. Let your breath match the rhythm of the story. Let the quiet rise around you. Like a gentle tide, let your breathing slow, let your thoughts become gentle. As we step once more into the quiet forests and wide river plains of ancient Gaul, where the world of Rome has faded and the world of the Franks is beginning to rise like a new dawn, we left Clovis in the early years of his leadership. Strong, ambitious, patient, and deeply aware of the fragile balance across Gaul. Now, in this chapter, we watch him move from promise to power, from potential to destiny. This is the moment when Clovis becomes not merely a leader of the Salian Franks, but the architect of a kingdom. We begin in the gentle calm of early morning. Mist settles over the fields, a thin line of sunlight touches the tops of the oaks. Small villages stir slowly to life, farmers waking, fires being rekindled, animals beginning their day. Somewhere in this quiet landscape, Clovis prepares for a path that will change the fate of Western Europe. This time, the Franks are strong, but they are not yet united. Many smaller chieftains exist, leaders of bands, leaders of villages, leaders of families. But Clovis is different. He has the vision of a single people, a unified Frankish identity capable of commanding all Gaul. Yet before unity can come, before alliances can solidify, before a kingdom can form, Clovis must face a formidable challenge. To the east live the Alemanni, a powerful confederation of Germanic tribes. Their warriors are known for ferocity, their leaders for pride, their lands for thick forests and deep valleys. For decades, the Alemanni have pressed against Roman borders and Frankish territories alike, and now, tensions reach a breaking point. Imagine messengers arriving at Clovis's hall, riding hard through winter frost, their cloaks stiff with cold, their breath hanging in the air. They report that the Alemanni have launched raids into Frankish lands. Villages near the Rhine have been threatened. Allied tribes plead for support. The Alemanni grow bold. Clovis listens quietly, not with fear, but with recognition. This is the moment he has anticipated. A test that will define him before all the Franks. He gathers his warriors, shields are polished, spears are inspected, swords are sharpened with slow, deliberate strokes. Cloaks are pinned at the shoulder, horses are prepared for the long march east. Now imagine the Frankish host leaving their settlement at dawn. Hundreds of warriors move in steady silence, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth. Sunlight glints off iron spearheads. Clovis rides at the front, his long hair flowing behind him, the unmistakable sign of Frankish royal blood. As they travel, the landscape changes, wide plains give way to rising hills, fields fade into forests, rivers narrow into swift, cold streams, birdsong becomes sparse. The air feels heavy, as if anticipating what is to come. Clovis is calm, but he knows victory will not come from noise or fury. It will come from unity, from the trust of his warriors, from the lineage he carries, from the moment that destiny has prepared. For him, the Franks and the Alemanni meet in a valley lined with dark trees, a place later chroniclers would remember for its silence, its stillness, its almost sacred atmosphere. The Alemanni stand in tight ranks. Their shields are large, their spears thick, their faces set with determination. Smoke rises from their encampments in the distance. Drums beat slowly, like a heartbeat echoing across the field. The Frankish warriors form their line opposite them. Clovis rides through the ranks, speaking quietly to his men, reminding them of their families, their lands, their ancestors, their future. Then, the battle begins. But in this fall asleep retelling, we do not hear the clash of iron. We do not feel the shock of combat. Instead, we follow only the shifting of fate, soft, distant, slow, like watching ripples spread across a still pond at a T1 moment. The Franks begin to falter. The Alemanni push hard. Their warriors press forward with fierce momentum. And here, in this moment of great tension, Clovis makes a decision that will change history. He calls upon a god he does not yet fully know, the god of his Christian wife, Clotilde. He vows that if victory is granted to him, he will convert to the Christian faith. This vow is not loud, not theatrical, just a quiet promise spoken in desperation and hope. From this point, the tide turns. The Alemanni leader, as accounts later suggest, falls in the fighting. Their confidence breaks. Confusion spreads. The Alemanni retreat, scattering into the forest. The Franks stand victorious, but something far greater than military victory has occurred. Clovis has taken a step no Frankish leader before him has taken. A spiritual step, a political step, a defining step, a step toward Christianity. In the calm of the evening, after the battle has ended, Clovis sits before a quiet fire. His warriors rest nearby, their voices low, their movements slow. The stars shine above, glittering white in the cold sky. Clovis reflects on his vow and on the weight of what it means. He has made a promise not just for himself, but for his people. Soon after, Clovis meets with the bishops of Gaul. Among them is Saint Remigius, a man of wisdom and gentle authority. Under his guidance, Clovis learns the teachings of the Christian faith. Imagine Clovis sitting in a small chamber lit by oil lamps. The air smells of parchment and warm wax. Remigius speaks softly, explaining scripture, explaining the history of the church, explaining the role of a Christian king. Clovis listens in his characteristic quiet way, absorbing every word, thinking not just of belief, but of the future of his kingdom. The day of his baptism arrives. That it takes place in Reims, a Roman town still alive with Christian tradition. Winter air swirls around the church walls. Inside, lamps glow softly, casting warm light on stone columns and carved altars. Clovis kneels. Remigius anoints him. The water flows across his head, and with this act, Clovis becomes the first Catholic king among the Germanic rulers. This moment carries enormous importance. While other Germanic tribes follow Arian Christianity, a different interpretation, a source of division, Clovis chooses the Catholic faith shared by the majority of the Roman population in Gaul. This single decision unites two worlds, the world of the Franks and the world of the Romans. It brings stability, it brings legitimacy, it brings support from the powerful bishops of Gaul. And it lays the foundation for a kingdom that will endure. After his baptism, Clovis's influence expands rapidly. Roman nobles support him. Local populations trust him. Other Frankish leaders recognize his authority. Rival tribes grow wary. Gaul begins to settle under his rule. Roads are repaired. Cities revive. Councils form to support him. Churches expand their roles. The seeds of medieval France take root. Clovis continues to unify the Franks, absorbing smaller groups, integrating rival chieftains, reshaping the landscape of power. Under his leadership, the Franks become not just a people, but a kingdom with one ruler, one faith, one future. As you drift deeper into calm, imagine the quiet transformation of Gaul. Fields thriving, villages growing, church bells ringing across the land. Frankish warriors patrolling peaceful roads. Roman and Frankish families blending into a single culture. Forests surrounding new settlements. Rivers carrying the reflection of a changing world. And at the center of this world, Clovis, calm, steady, powerful, guides his people into a new age. Tonight, Let your mind rest in this moment, the birth of the Merovingian kingdom, the rise of a unified Frankish world, the quiet merging of ancient traditions and new beliefs. Something extraordinary has begun and will continue for centuries. Let yourself drift gently into calm once more. Feel the soft weight of your breath. Allow the story to unfold as smoothly as river water flowing over polished stones. We return now to Gaul, to the land transformed by the baptism and rising authority of Clovis, the king who has united faith and leadership in a way no Frank before him had done. But his story, and the story of the Frankish kingdom, is only beginning. With his newfound legitimacy in the eyes of both Romans and Franks, Clovis now steps confidently into a larger world filled with rival kings, shifting borders, and people longing for stability after centuries of decline. Imagine Gaul at this time, at a vast patchwork of lands once governed by Rome, now divided among various powers. To the south lie the Visigoths, their kingdoms stretching from Toulouse over the Pyrenees into Hispania. To the southeast stand the Burgundians, strong yet fractured by internal divisions. In the north, smaller Frankish clans remain semi-independent, watching Clovis with a mixture of hope and caution, and everywhere, Roman towns and cities continue to hold their traditions, churches ringing their bells, bishops guiding their communities, senators maintaining the last threads of Roman administrative memory. It is into this landscape that Clovis moves, not as a conqueror bound by aggression, but as a ruler guided by vision, seeking unity where others see division. The councils of Gaul, led by influential bishops, begin to support him openly. They see in Clovis a champion of Catholic Christianity, a stabilizing ruler in a fractured world, a man who respects their guidance. And small stone churches, in quiet meeting rooms lit by oil lamps, in Roman villas repurposed for political gatherings, they speak his name with confidence. And Clovis listens. He understands that spiritual authority strengthens political authority, that moral support fortifies territorial ambition. This new alliance with the church becomes the foundation for his next steps. Now imagine Clovis, standing before a map of Gaul, a parchment marked with rivers, mountains, and ancient Roman roads. His finger traces the Loire River, then the Garonne, then the Rhone. Each region tells a story. Each border holds opportunity. To the south, the Visigoths pose the greatest obstacle to Frankish expansion. Though powerful, they follow Arian Christianity, a belief rejected by most of the Roman population in Gaul. This creates tension between the Visigothic rulers and the Roman Catholic majority living under their control. Clovis sees this tension not as a threat, but as an opening, a chance to present himself as a protector of the people, a unifier of faith, a legitimate successor to Roman authority. But before turning south, he must first consolidate the north. Imagine Clovis traveling across northern Gaul, visiting settlements where Roman walls still stand, meeting with local leaders, receiving gestures of loyalty from smaller Frankish chiefs. His presence alone brings reassurance that he is not merely a king of warriors. He is becoming a king of peoples. He restores order in towns long neglected, that he protects trade routes, that he repairs roads, that he encourages Roman administrators to continue their work, that he respects bishops, but also strengthens the authority of his own warriors and officials. This delicate balance, Roman stability and Frankish strength, is the secret of his success. But stability always invites challenge. In the northeast, a local Frankish king refuses to acknowledge Clovis's supremacy. Not with open hostility, but with quiet defiance, ignoring messages, withholding support, controlling his own territory independently. Clovis understands this cannot continue. Unity requires clarity. Authority must be recognized. And so he rides north with a contingent of warriors. Not a great army, but a symbolic force, enough to demonstrate strength without provoking unnecessary conflict. Imagine the meeting between Clovis and the rival leader. It takes place in a clearing at the edge of a forest. The air is cool. The wind moves gently through pine branches. The two leaders stand face to face. No shouting, no violence, just calm negotiation. Clovis speaks slowly, explaining the future he envisions for the Franks. A future of unity, strength, and prosperity. He offers protection, alliance, and cooperation. And the rival leader, seeing the strength Clovis embodies and the destiny unfolding, bows his head in acceptance. His warriors follow. The northern territories become part of Clovis's growing kingdom. This moment, quiet and diplomatic, is one of many steps through which Clovis unites the Franks. Not through destruction, but through guidance and purpose. Now his gaze turns once more southward, toward the Visigoths. Imagine a Roman bishop arriving at Clovis's hall. His cloak is dusty from long travel. His expression carries urgency. He explains that the Visigothic rule weighs heavily on the Catholic communities of southern Gaul. They desire a king who shares their faith, a king who respects their traditions, a king who protects the church. Clovis listens, and in the firelight of his hall, a decision begins to form. He will challenge the Visigoths. Not for conquest alone, but for unity. Unity of land, unity of people, unity of faith. Before he acts, he calls his warriors and advisors together. The hall fills. With deep voices, the sound of armor shifting, the warmth of the central fire. Clovis speaks with calm authority, explaining the opportunity that lies ahead. A chance to liberate Catholic Gaul, a chance to expand Frankish power, a chance to strengthen the kingdom for future generations. The warriors listen with quiet intensity. They trust him. They feel the momentum of history moving beneath their feet. Preparations begin. Weapons are repaired, provisions gathered, scouts sent into southern lands. Yet even in the midst of planning for war, the atmosphere remains soft, slow, and steady, like the unfolding of a natural season. Clovis does not rush. He observes, he waits, he chooses the right moment. The Visigothic king, Alaric II, rules from Toulouse, holding a vast territory extending from the Loire River down to Hispania. His forces are strong, but his support among Catholic Romans is weak. Clovis recognizes this imbalance and prepares to move. But this campaign, this turning point in the history of the Franks and of Western Europe, belongs to the next chapter. For now, rest in the quiet anticipation of what is coming. Clovis stands at the threshold of greatness. His kingdom unified in the north, his alliances secured, his faith solidified, his authority recognized. The land waits in stillness. Cities wait with hope. The church waits with expectation. And history waits for the moment when Clovis will step forward and reshape the destiny of Gaul forever. Let your breath soften once more. Let your thoughts drift like morning fog across an ancient valley, and allow yourself to enter the calm, unfolding story of a world on the edge of transformation. We return to Clovis at a moment of rising strength. He has unified the northern Franks. He has forged bonds with the church. He has earned the trust of Roman communities across Gaul. And now, one final great obstacle stands between him and the vision of a truly united kingdom. The Visigoths. Their kingdom stretches broadly across the south, from the valleys of the Loire through Aquitanido, the sunlit cities beyond the Pyrenees. Their lands are rich. Rolling vineyards, fertile plains, Roman towns filled with marble buildings, churches with mosaics that glimmer in sunlight. But beneath the beauty, there is tension. A cultural divide that only deepens over time. The Visigothic elite follow Arian Christianity, a doctrine rejected by the Catholic majority living in Gaul. This difference creates quiet, discomfort in many communities, a subtle feeling that the rulers and the ruled walk two parallel paths. Clovis sees this clearly. Not as a critic, not as a rival, but as a leader who understands that unity requires harmony. The bishops of Gaul also see it.in small rooms lit by flickering lamps. They speak softly of their concerns. The uncertainty of Roman citizens under Visigothic rule, the lack of spiritual alignment, the desire for a king who shares their faith. Clovis becomes the center of these quiet discussions, not through demand, but through reputation. His conversion has changed everything. Now imagine Clovis in his hall. A tall wooden structure glowing with the warmth of the central fire, shadows dance across the beams, warriors sit in stillness, advisors murmur in low tones. At the far side of the hall, a Roman bishop stands. He carries with him news from the south. The Visigothic court is growing uneasy. Rival factions whisper in Toulouse. Catholics long for a protector. Clovis listens without haste. His thoughts move slowly and calmly, like a river absorbing the landscape it travels through. He understands that time is shifting, that the balance of power in Gaul is ready to settle in a new shape. Yet he does not rush to war. He prepares, quietly, patiently, wisely. Imagine the Frankish warriors in the months that follow, repairing their armor, mending leather straps, forging new spearheads in the red glow of the forge. Horses graze in winter fields. Messengers travel across the kingdom carrying instructions and gathering reports, but the atmosphere in Clovis's realm remains calm, almost serene. There is no frenzy, no urgency, only the steady rhythm of preparation guided by certainty. Clovis rides southward on a journey of diplomacy before war. He visits Roman towns along the Loire. These towns, once vibrant centers of the empire, now exist in quiet endurance. Their stone gates still stand. Their churches still ring bells. Their marketplaces still echo with voices, though fewer than before. When Clovis arrives, people gather to greet him. They see not just a king, but a guardian of their faith. Bishops bless him. Roman families welcome him. Local leaders pledge their support. This is not conquest, it is transition. Smooth, natural, steady. Yet the Visigoths cannot ignore his presence in Toulouse. King Alaric II feels the weight of change pressing upon him. He is not a cruel king, nor a reckless one. He wishes for peace. But he also knows that power must be defended. He gathers his advisors. They speak of Frankish movements, of bishops turning toward Clovis, of Roman towns leaning north. Alaric senses that a great conflict approaches, not from malice, but from destiny. Back in Clovis's camp, the atmosphere remains one of quiet focus. Imagine Clovis sitting beneath an oak tree at dusk. The sky is painted in soft hues of blue and violet. His warriors gather nearby, their armor glinting faintly in the fading light. A gentle breeze stirs the grass. Clovis contemplates the path ahead. He thinks not of glory, but of responsibility. He knows that victory will bring unity, and unity will bring peace. And so he prepares to move forward, step by steady step. When spring arrives, the Frankish forces begin to march, not with loud drums, not with shouts, but with calm determination. The countryside transforms as they move. Fields sway like waves in the wind. Villagers watch from doorways, offering bread, offering support, offering prayers. Clovis advances with a purpose that feels inevitable. Now imagine the Visigothic scouts bringing word of the Frankish approach to Toulouse. Their reports describe thousands of warriors, but also describe a king who gains loyalty not through terror but through trust. Alaric II knows the moment has come. The two forces finally meet near the quiet fields of Vouille, a place where vineyards stretch across gentle hills and small streams wind through the grass. The morning is cool. Mist clings to the valleys, birdsong carries softly through the air. The battlefield looks peaceful, almost serene. One of those landscapes where a person might fall asleep under a tree, unaware that history will soon shift upon this ground. Clovis's warriors form their lines with silent discipline. Alaric's forces stand across from them, solid, steady, experienced. Yet the battle itself, in this fall asleep retelling, comes to us only as a distant echo, a soft turning of fate rather than noise and chaos. What matters is not the clash, but the outcome. Clovis emerges victorious. Alaric II falls. The Visigothic power in Gaul collapses. and the southern provinces, filled with Roman communities longing for unity, welcome Clovis as their king. This moment is monumental. By winning at Vuil, Clovis becomes the ruler of nearly all Gaul, from the north near the Rhinedo, the south near the Garonne, from the forests of the Easto, the shores of the Atlantic. The Frankish kingdom, once a cluster of tribes, now becomes the most powerful realm in Western Europe. But victory does not bring arrogance. Clovis returns to his kingdom with humility. He strengthens laws, works with bishops, protects towns, and ensures order. He governs not as a conqueror, but as a guardian. As you drift deeper into calm, imagine Gaul settling under his rule. Churches filled with candlelight, roads traveled safely, villages thriving, councils meeting peacefully, and the land breathing in a new era of stability. All of this, the unity, the victories, the peace, forms the foundation of medieval Europe. Clovis has become not only a king, but the architect of a civilization. Let your breath settle again, feel your shoulders loosen. Let the story flow gently around you, like warm light drifting across a quiet plain at sunset. We return now to Gaul, to the vast land newly unified under Clovis, a king who has turned the shifting fragments of a post-Roman world into a stable realm for his people. The victory over the Visigoths at Vuil has changed everything. Clovis is no longer simply a strong leader among many. He is the central axis of Gaul, the point around which cities, bishops, warriors, and families orient themselves. The kingdom stretches farther than any Frankish leader before him could imagine, and those who once doubted him now stand in quiet admiration of his achievement. But Clovis's greatest work has only just begun. He must now transform victory into law, power into stability, and unity into permanence. Imagine Clovis in his later years, not old, but carrying the weight of responsibility with the steady grace of someone who has shaped the world around him. He walks through the halls of his residence in Paris, a city he chooses intentionally, a central point in his kingdom, a place where Roman memory meets Frankish energy. Paris at this time is not the crowded metropolis we imagine today. It is a quiet city of stone houses, narrow streets, wooden bridges, and churches whose bells echo across the river Seine like gentle waves in the morning air. From the windows of his hall, Clovis sees the rooftops of the city, smoke rising from hearths, boats drifting on the water, and the silhouettes of distant hills softened by mist. He knows that his kingdom is larger than any single city, but Paris gives him a sense of balance, a place from which he can listen, observe, and plan. Inside the hall, advisors gather around large wooden tables covered with parchment. Roman administrators explain matters of law. Frankish chiefs discuss border issues. Bishops speak of disputes, conversions, and the needs of their communities. Clovis listens with the same calm attention that carried him through battles and councils alike. That he understands something essential, that a king must not only conquer, he must also govern, and so he begins to shape the legal foundations of his kingdom. Imagine Clovis sitting beside a table lit by a single oil lamp. The flame flickers softly, casting warm tones across the polished wood. Roman scribes kneel nearby, quills in hand, ready to write. Together, they create one of the earliest legal codes of medieval Europe, the Lex Salica, the Salic Law. This law blends Frankish customs with Roman legal tradition. That it outlines fines and compensations, rules of inheritance, responsibilities of freemen, protection of property, and consequences for wrongdoing. For the first time, Frankish law is written, not merely remembered. This brings clarity. It brings order. It brings the beginnings of a structured kingdom. And it helps Clovis govern a population that includes Franks, Romans, Gallo-Romans, Burgundians, and many others. Clovis is not creating a tribal kingdom anymore. He is creating a realm where different peoples can live under a single, stable authority. Now imagine Clovis visiting the great cities of Gaul during his later years. He enters the ancient gates of Tours, where the memory of Saint Martin remains strong. He walks through the quiet streets of Orleans, Listening to the bell of its church ring in the cold morning air, he rides into Bordeaux, where Roman amphitheaters rise like stone ghosts from another age. He surveys the lands near Angers, where vineyards roll across gentle hills. Everywhere he goes, people gather to see him. Romans with long tunics, Franks with woolen cloaks, monks carrying manuscripts, children waving small branches as greeting. They do not whisper his name. They speak it proudly. Clovis, our king. Bishops bless him. Nobles feast him. Farmers bow their heads with quiet respect. Every visit strengthens the unity of the realm. With unity comes responsibility. Clovis makes decisions slowly, never rushing, never acting from pride. He considers counsel, weighs consequences, and always seeks balance between Roman stability and Frankish vigor. Yet even as he rules, Clovis remains deeply connected to his roots. He still leads councils with simplicity, sits on wooden chairs rather than Roman thrones, wears long hair as the symbol of his royal lineage, and values loyalty above ceremony. But kingship also brings new responsibilities. Imagine Clovis later in life, walking through the Council of Orleans, a gathering of bishops from across Gaul. The hall is filled with quiet discussion. Candles burn in long rows. Bishops sit in semicircles, their robes rustling softly as they move. Clovis greets them with humility, listening to their concerns, addressing matters of church property, settling disputes, and offering protection. His relationship with the church becomes one of the defining features of his kingdom. Not dominance, not subservience, but partnership. Through this partnership, Clovis stabilizes Gaul in ways military victory alone could never achieve. Now imagine the Frankish court in Clovis's final years. Warriors stand guard with calm. Vigilant scribes move quietly between rooms. Bishops visit to discuss matters of faith. Diplomats bring news from distant lands. Sometimes, Clovis walks outside at dusk, toward the river, where the evening light reflects on the water. He watches the calm surface ripple with the smallest breeze. The Seine flows gently, steadily, like the unfolding of his life. And in these quiet moments, Clovis reflects on all that has changed. How his father led a tribe, but he leads a kingdom. How Roman power crumbled, but he rebuilt order. How faith divided peoples, but he united them under one belief. He has given his people something rare, a future they can trust as time passes. Clovis senses his journey nearing its end. He does not fear it, he merely accepts it. As all leaders shaped by destiny eventually do, he ensures that the kingdom is prepared. His sons hold territories, his laws stand firm, his alliances stay strong. His people remain united. When Clovis finally passes away in the year 511, the kingdom mourns him not with turmoil, but with gratitude. Church bells ring softly across Gaul. Frankish warriors place their swords upright in the earth as a symbol of respect. Bishops chant prayers through the night. Roman and Frankish families alike light candles in their homes. He is buried among the kings of the Franks, in a quiet resting place in Paris, the city he had chosen as the heart of his kingdom. And though centuries will pass, and dynasties will rise and fall, Clovis's legacy remains more enduring than any crown. He united a people, he bridged two worlds, he laid the foundations of medieval France. He shaped the future of Europe. As you breathe slowly now, let the calm of his story settle into your mind. Let the quiet weight of history rest gently over you. Let the peaceful rhythm of the past guide you toward rest. Let yourself settle again. Feel your breathing slow. Let the world around you soften as we drift back into the peaceful landscape of early medieval Gaul. Clovis is gone. The king who unified the Franks, who defeated the Visigoths, who embraced the Catholic faith, who restored order to a broken land, has completed his journey. But the world he shaped continues to move forward, not in chaos, but in the gentle rhythm of a kingdom learning to stand on its own. The year is 511. The bells of churches across Gaul toll softly. Communities gather in silence. Roman towns, Frankish villages, monastic communities, All pause to remember their king. But kingdoms do not pause for long. They must continue, and Clovis has left not one heir, but 4 sons, each strong, each ambitious, each destined to rule a part of the realm he forged. According to Frankish custom, a custom older than Rome, older than the church, older than kingship itself, the kingdom is divided among his sons' land and inheritance. This is not seen as destruction. It is seen as balance. Just as fields are divided among brothers, so too is a kingdom divided. Now imagine the map of Gaul once more. Soft candlelight illuminates the parchment. Rivers glisten like silver threads. Cities appear as small dots, and lines are drawn, not harshly, but carefully, producing 4 distinct regions. Theoderic, the eldest, receives the lands in the northeast, a region shaped by frontier forests, Roman military roads, and deep Frankish traditions. Clovis, bold and confident, takes the central territories around Orleans, a region filled with quiet towns, rolling hills, and strong church influence. Child Ebert, clever and diplomatic, becomes ruler of the lands around Paris and Western Gaul, the cultural heart, the meeting place of Roman memory and Frankish strength. Clotaire, the youngest, receives the lands in the north, a realm of fertile plains, rivers that wind gently through quiet villages, and powerful Frankish noble families. Even divided, the kingdom remains, connected by shared culture, shared belief, and the powerful legacy of Clovis. Now imagine the 4 brothers during their first years of rule. Each governs from a different city: Metz, Orleans, Paris, Soissons. Their courts filled with warriors, bishops, advisors, and the calm rhythms of administration. Despite their differences, their courts share a common atmosphere. Smoldering hearths in long wooden halls, Roman scribes bent over parchment, Frankish nobles discussing land disputes, bishops quietly, advising rulers on faith and diplomacy, messengers moving swiftly between regions, carrying letters sealed with wax. Although the land is divided, their purpose is not. They rule together, not as enemies, but as brothers of a dynasty still in its early glow, and Gaul does not fall into conflict. Instead, it stabilizes, unified not by a single throne, but by a single identity. Roman towns begin to flourish again. Monasteries grow in number, their peaceful gardens filling with herbs, their scriptoria alive with the soft scratch of quill-scopying ancient texts. Frankish villages prosper, fields expand, seasonal markets buzz with activity, cattle graze along rivers, and children play in the shadows of rebuilt churches. The church itself grows stronger. Bishops travel between courts, serving as bridges between Roman culture and Frankish authority. They bless decisions, mediate disputes, guide the moral foundations of the realm and large gatherings. Councils filled with murmured prayers and quiet deliberation. They speak of order, justice, and the responsibilities of kings. And the Merovingian rulers listen. They do not impose new faith or reject tradition. They accept the dual nature of their kingdom, Roman and Frankish, old and new, earthly and spiritual. Imagine Theoderic wandering through the forests of his northeastern lands. Tall trees swaying gently in the wind, rivers reflecting the sky, villages full of simple wooden homes. Imagine Clovis visiting a Roman town, walking past stone arches, listening to merchants bargain, seeing children run through narrow streets paved centuries earlier. Imagine Child Ebert entering Paris, watching the Seine flow gently under wooden bridges, passing churches where monks chant softly in candlelit naves. Imagine Clotaire riding across open plains, feeling the cool breeze against his face, seeing fields stretch to the horizon, hearing the distant ringing of church bells from small rural chapels. This is the Frankish kingdom after Clovis, not chaotic, not collapsing, but quietly expanding its roots. Yet beneath the calm, there is also the energy of ambition. The brothers see each other not as rivals, but as potential extensions of their own rule. Each watches the others, curious about how the kingdom might shift in the future. Still, accidents and fate guide their movements more than conflict. Clovis's sons continue his legacy, strengthening laws, supporting the church, protecting Roman towns, ensuring fair tribute, and maintaining unity at it is a time of equilibrium, a gentle settling of power, a moment before the kingdom grows once more and quiet chambers lit by oil lamps, scribes record land grants, bishops bless marriages, and noble families form alliances. Monasteries rise in remote valleys. Simple stone buildings surrounded by gardens, their walls echo with psalms sung in soft harmony, their libraries filled with carefully copied manuscripts. The Frankish world moves in rhythms of routine, stability, and slow transformation, and in this stillness, the Merovingian dynasty strengthens its foundation, a dynasty shaped not only by Clovis, but by generations willing to balance unity with tradition, religion with politics, and strength with patience. As you breathe slowly now, imagine the soft glow of dawn spreading across the kingdom, the quiet hum of life returning to Roman cities, the gentle creak of monastery wooden doors opening at sunrise, the rustling of wheat fields in the wind, the distant sound of church bells drifting over a sleepy village. This peaceful landscape is the inheritance of Clovis's sons, a kingdom ready to grow, ready to evolve, ready to continue its long journey into medieval history. Let your breath fall into a gentle rhythm. Allow the world around you to soften and drift once more into the quiet expanse of early medieval Gaul, where the sons of Clovis carry forward a kingdom that has begun to feel ancient even in its youth. We left the realm divided among four brothers: Theoderic in the northeast, Clodomir in the central Loire region, Childebert in Paris and the west, and Clotaire in the north. Though separated by borders, their lands remain bound by something deeper: the shared legacy of their father, the unified Frankish identity, and the quiet agreement that the Merovingian dynasty is destined not merely to survive, but to flourish. Now imagine Gaul in the decades after Clovis's passing. The land has grown calmer. The scars of Rome's collapse have faded like old footprints. Villages grow larger. Farmers cultivate fields that stretch farther each year. Churches become the centers of community life, their bells marking the passing of our sin, a world where time flows gently, like a slow-moving river. The four sons rule in their own manner, each shaping their regions in subtle ways. And Metz, Theoderic governs with the confidence of experience. His lands border other Germanic peoples, the Thuringians, the Bavarians, and so diplomacy and frontier strength become the rhythm of his reign. He strengthens ties through marriage alliances, maintains peace along river borders, and quietly expands Frankish presence across the Rhine. Imagine him riding through his territories, dense forests rising around him, the Moselle River glimmering like a silver ribbon, villages greeting him with respectful quiet. His rule is steady, measured, and deeply rooted in Frankish tradition. In Orleans, Clodomir's lands flourish under Roman influence. Church councils meet frequently. Roman stone buildings still stand proud, their arches and columns softened by moss and age. Clodomir himself moves among the people with a blend of Frankish strength and Roman formality. His court is filled with bishops, scribes, and noble families seeking alliances. In Paris, Childebert governs with elegance and care. The city grows slowly under his watch. Markets expand, bridges strengthen, and the River Seine becomes a vein of peaceful commerce. He welcomes ambassadors from distant lands, from Burgundy, from Italy, from the Ostrogoths. Paris becomes a place where diplomacy and culture mix with the grounded simplicity of Frankish life. And in Soissons and northern Gaul, Clotaire rules with ambition tempered by patience. He watches his brothers, learns from their successes, and nurtures alliances quietly. His lands, rich in grain and cattle, become the economic backbone of the kingdom. He maintains wide networks of loyalty among Frankish nobles, earning a reputation as a unifier. Together, though separated, the brothers strengthen the Merovingian world. Now imagine the councils that occasionally bring them together. The meetings take place in great halls or churches, their stone walls echoing with the soft murmur of voices. Bishops guide discussions about faith, noblemen discuss boundaries and marriages, and scribes document agreements in elegant script. The brothers sit around a long wooden table, shadows flickering on their faces. Torchlight dances against stone. Though each carries the weight of his own territory, their unity remains intact, a quiet understanding that the Frankish world is strongest when its rulers move in harmony. Gaul prospers under their collective rule. Imagine traveling through the countryside at this time. Wide fields sway gently in the wind. Gallo-Roman villas stand beside Frankish farmhouses. Church towers rise above villages, their bells marking morning prayers. Shepherds guide flocks across peaceful hills. Markets fill with pottery, textiles, iron tools, wine, honey, and stories traded as easily as goods. Monasteries begin to multiply. Small, stone structures rise in secluded valleys, places of quiet devotion where monks wake before dawn, chanting soft hymns that echo across the landscape like calm waves toward heaven. Inside their libraries, ancient manuscripts are copied with patient care, the writings of church fathers, fragments of classical authors, new texts chronicling kings and saints. These monasteries become the quiet engines of culture, learning, and stability. Meanwhile, across the Merovingian realm, Roman law blends with Frankish custom. The Lex Salicus spreads through each region, not rigidly enforced, but gently guiding justice, codifying compensations and fines, offering structure to communities that once relied solely on oral tradition. And everywhere, the church partners with the state, protecting the weak, advising rulers, and anchoring towns and villages in a shared spiritual rhythm. That I end this calm and organic way, the Merovingian kingdom settles into maturity. Of course, change still moves beneath the surface. As in all dynasties, the future whispers with possibilities. Alliances shifting like leaves in a quiet wind, territorial ambitions drifting across the minds of rulers, and the understanding that brothers, though united by legacy, may still walk their own paths. In time, some sons will inherit when others pass. Territories will merge and separate. New heirs will rise, and the Merovingian world will slowly transition toward greater unity once more. Unity deeper than what Clovis achieved, one formed through generations of careful, steady rule. But at this moment, this peaceful moment in early medieval Gaul, the kingdom stands in equilibrium, united in faith, connected through culture, sustained by its people, guided by its kings, strengthened by its church, rooted in traditions both Roman and Frankish, and growing with the quiet, patient certainty of a young tree taking deeper hold in the earth as the sun sets over Gaul, casting soft golden light. Across fields and forests, you can imagine the silhouettes of monasteries, the chimneys of villages, the quiet walls of Roman towns, and the distant figures of riders carrying messages between the four courts. The kingdom born from the strength of one man now breathes through the cooperation of four brothers. A living, evolving realm that will continue long after their time. Let this vision settle gently in your mind. The calm of a stable land, the soft rise of evening mist, the glowing lamps of Paris streets, the low chants from a monastery at dusk, the deep sense of continuity binding one generation to the next. Let your breath soften again. Let your shoulders relax. Let the story move gently. Like a soft tide brushing the shores of an ancient land, we return now to Gaul and the generations after Clovis. A peaceful world of growing monasteries, quiet towns, strengthening laws, and for Merovingian brothers ruling their respective realms with care. At first glance, it may seem that the division of the kingdom would lead to chaos, for rulers, for courts, for regions evolving differently. But the Merovingian world is not one of separation. It is one of balance. The four realms are like four branches growing from the same ancient trunk. Distinct, yet deeply connected, decades pass. Fields expand, churches multiply, trade routes lengthen, and the Franks begin to think of themselves not as separate tribes or separate peoples, but as one nation, bound by language, faith, law, and memory. Yet time brings change, and the lives of kings are as fragile as the seasons that pass over the countryside. Slowly, naturally, peacefully, the number of rulers begins to decrease. This is not through conflict, nor through violence, but through the simple rhythm of life. Some sons leaving no heirs, some lines ending gently, some territories passing to surviving Brothers' tradition dictates. Imagine one such moment at a Frankish king, one of Clovis's sons. Falls ill in his later years, the court gathers in quiet concern, priests pray softly in candlelit chambers. Nobles stand at the edges of the hall, heads bowed, hands clasped. When the king finally passes, church bells toll slowly across the city. A steady, calming sound that carries along streets and across riverbanks, and with this passing, the land he ruled does not fracture, it flows naturally into the hands of his surviving brothers. One crown is removed from the world, and the remaining crowns grow heavier, greater, more unifying. Now imagine Clotaire, the youngest of Clovis's sons, as he begins to accumulate lands through the simple, quiet tide of inheritance. Piece by piece, region by region, he gathers what his brothers once ruled. Not through war, not through ambition, but through continuity. By the will of tradition. By the structure of Salic Law. By the natural passing of generations, he becomes the king who carries the torch of the Merovingian realm into a new era. But even as he acquires these lands, he does not change their character. Each region, the forests of the northeast, the hills of Orleans, the stone streets of Paris, the open plains of northern Gaul, keeps its identity. Yet all now share one ruler and one destiny. Imagine Clotaire traveling between his cities, moving from Metz to Paris, from Soissons to Orleans, from rural monasteries to bustling markets. Wherever he goes, people greet him, not as a stranger from another region, but as their king. Roman families bow respectfully, Frankish nobles greet him warmly, monks chant blessings as he passes, children point with excitement. The kingdom is slowly becoming whole again, not by force, but by patience. Meanwhile, the church continues its quiet work. Monasteries record events, copy scriptures, preserve texts, and guide the spiritual needs of the people. Bishops counsel kings with gentle, measured voices, helping maintain justice and moral order. Roman law and Frankish custom blend so seamlessly that future generations will see them as one unified tradition as Clotaire ages. His rule stretches over most of Gaul. He becomes, in many ways, the mirror of his father, a single king ruling a vast land bound together by shared identity. But Clotaire's reign is not loud. It is not filled with dramatic conquest. It is quiet, methodical, steady, a reign defined by continuity, not conflict. Imagine the Frankish kingdom during Clotaire's later years. Villages glowing with lamplight at dusk, monks chanting softly at dawn, merchants traveling safe roads between cities, fields stretching like golden oceans beneath the summer sun, children learning prayers in small churches, elders sitting outside their homes, watching the rhythms of life continue as they've always done. World that feels stable, calm, secure. A world that will give birth to the medieval identity of Europe. Clotaire's later councils are filled with quiet order. Bishops proposing reforms, Frankish nobles discussing land, scribes documenting agreements in the flowing script of their age. The Merovingian kingdom becomes more structured, more organized, more unified, and when Clotaire finally passes away, sometime in the middle of the 6th century, church bells ring once more across the land he rebuilt. But this time, something different happens. The kingdom, long divided and slowly reunified, is again separated among his sons. as Frankish custom requires. Yet the separations are no longer dramatic, they no longer threaten unity. They are simply the continuation of a rhythm the people have come to understand. Regions shift gently from one ruler to another, borders breathe and adjust. But the kingdom itself, Frankish identity, Merovingian prestige, Christian unity, remains strong. This, too, is part of the Merovingian genius, a kingdom that can divide and reunite without losing itself through these cycles. The Frankish world continues to grow in influence. Its laws spread, its culture spreads, its faith deepens, its population rises, its economy strengthens, its monasteries become centers of knowledge for generations to come, and from this world, this quiet, stable, deeply rooted world, future dynasties will emerge, future kings will rise, future chapters of Europe will be written that as you breathe softly now, let the image of early, medieval Gaul rest gently in your mind. A kingdom of forests and rivers, of stone churches and wooden halls, of farmers and monks, of Roman memory and Frankish strength, of slow change, steady leadership, and lasting legacy. Settle into your breath, let your mind drift gently as we return to early medieval Gaul, a land no longer defined by collapse, but by slow renewal, steady growth, and the calm rhythm of a dynasty that roots itself deeper with each passing decade. We step now into the later Merovingian age, a period often overshadowed by the dramatic rise of Clovis and the later transformation under the Carolingians. But here, in this long, quiet middle, the Frankish kingdom becomes truly alive. This is a time of subtle flourishing, when the seeds planted by Clovis and his sons begin to sprout across every corner of the land. Imagine Gaul in this era. Fields spreading wider than before, church towers standing taller, villages growing more connected, and roads once cracked by Rome's collapse being worn smooth again by steady footsteps and wagon wheels. A kingdom breathing deeply, a people finding confidence, a culture awakening. The Merovingian kings, the sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons of Clovis, continue to rule there, divided yet united lands. But their rule has changed. It is no longer just about expansion or defense. It is about shaping life. And so, the Merovingian era becomes a time of quiet transformation. Not dramatic like battles, not noisy like conquests, but profound in its softness. Imagine walking through a valley at dawn. Mist rests on the grass. A river winds through reeds and willow trees. And sitting upon a hill, bathed in the first light of morning, is a newly founded monastery. The Merovingians were patrons of monasticism, not for spectacle, but because monasteries offered something the kingdom deeply needed: stability, learning, healing, and prayer. Monks rise in silence before sunrise. Their chants echo gently across stone walls. They copy manuscripts with slow, careful movements. They tend gardens of herbs, cultivating plants for medicine and healing. They provide food and shelter to travelers. They teach the children of local families to read, to write, to pray. Monasteries become the heartbeat of the realm, steady, rhythmic, constant. Under Merovingian patronage, places like Luxeuil, Saint Denis, and Saint Germain-des-Prés emerge as centers of spiritual and cultural life. Their manuscripts preserve ancient knowledge, classical texts, Christian writings, legal charters, and local histories. Their libraries glow with lamplighted scribes bend over parchment, inking letters that will outlive kingdoms. Their bells mark the hours of the day, creating a gentle rhythm that spreads from valley to valley across the Frankish lands. The Merovingian world is overwhelmingly rural, a land of fields, forests, and rivers, and during this era, villages grow stronger than ever. Imagine a small Frankish settlement, houses built of wood and thatch, surrounded by gardens of beans and barley. Cows graze in meadows. Smoke rises from hearths early in the morning. Children gather berries along the forest edge. Women spin wool beneath shaded porches. Men plow fields with wooden ards, their movements slow and steady, Life is simple but stable, no longer threatened by the sudden collapses that marked the final centuries of Rome. Trade slowly revives. Roman roads, though worn, carry merchants and travelers once more. Villagers swap honey for wine, grain for iron tools, herbs for pottery. Markets reappear in towns. Places of chatter, laughter, and gentle bustle. Evenings end quietly. Families gather around warm fires, listening to old stories of distant ancestors, of Roman generals, of Frankish heroes, of saints whose relics lie in nearby churches. The Merovingian world is also shaped by the subtle influence of women. Queens, noble women, abbesses, they sponsor churches, endow monasteries, mediate disputes, and sometimes lead with a clarity and wisdom equal to kings. Imagine Queen Radegund, a figure of compassion and intelligence. She founds monasteries, protects the weak, and brings a quiet dignity to the kingdom's spiritual life. Or Queen Brunhild, a woman of formidable political skill, who guides alliances, manages regions, and strengthens royal authority. Their presence adds a gentle depth to Merovingian society, a balance of influence felt in every sphere. Under the Merovingians, the relationship between kings and bishops remains balanced, not tense, not forced, but symbiotic. Imagine a council meeting, held in a stone church where candles flicker along the walls. Bishops speak in calm voices about disputes, marriages, property, and spiritual matters. Royal envoys listen respectfully, taking notes, carrying messages back to the king. Together, they shape policy, not through commands, but through consensus. The church brings moral authority. The monarchy brings political order, and the people feel the effects in the stability of daily life. Christianity becomes not just a religion, but a culture woven into the fabric of villages and cities. Imagine small wooden chapels standing in clearings, their crosses silhouetted against the sky. Inside, priests teach, pray, and guide their communities with gentle hands. Baptisms take place in rivers, feasts are held on holy days, pilgrims walk along quiet pasto shrines dedicated to local saints. Faith spreads naturally, peacefully, like seeds carried by the wind. Beyond the borders of the kingdom, other powers rise and fall. The Ostrogoths in Italy, the Visigoths in Hispania, the Lombards moving into the peninsula, the Byzantine Empire defending its ancient legacy. And through it all, the Merovingians maintain a gentle but growing influence. Envoys travel from Gaul to Constantinople, carrying gifts and letters. Kings exchange relics and diplomatic vows. Merchants cross borders with cloth, spices, and metalwork. The Frankish kingdom becomes a quiet but central pillar in the early medieval world. Its culture spreads. Its laws are respected. Its faith inspires. Its stability attracts. Europe begins to orient itself around Gaul, the heartland of the Merovingians. As you imagine this era, sense the tranquility of the land. The soft glow of monastery candles at dawn. The hush of forests surrounding quiet. Villages, the steady ringing of church bells marking midday. The murmurs of markets in Roman towns. The hushed turning of manuscript pages in scriptoriums. The peaceful flow of the Rhine, the Loire, the Seine, all moving in calm rhythm. This is the mature Merovingian kingdom, not loud, not dramatic, but profoundly stable, profoundly formative. It is the quiet soil from which the next great chapter of European history will eventually rise. Let your breath settle into a slow, peaceful rhythm with every inhale. Imagine yourself drifting deeper into the soft twilight of the early Middle Ages with every exhale. Release the noise of the world around you. We return now one final time to the Frankish kingdom, a land shaped by centuries of quiet strength, of steady rulers, of growing monasteries, of peaceful fields and ancient forests, a land that moved slowly and calmly from Roman memory into the dawn of medieval Europe. The Merovingians, the long, haired kings of Frankish tradition, have guided this world for nearly 2 centuries. Their lineage stretches from Clovis, whose baptism brought unity, to his sons and grandsons, who nurtured the land, to later rulers who governed with calm continuity. But all things change. All dynasties rise, flourish, and eventually yield to the future. Even the gentlest cycles eventually turn. And so we arrive at the twilight of the Merovingian age.in the later centuries of the dynasty. Merovingian kings still reign. But the nature of power begins to shift, not abruptly, not violently, but slowly. As gently as leaves drifting to the forest floor, kings remain symbols of continuity, their long hair seen as the mark of sacred authority. They preside over ceremonies, approve laws, bless monasteries, and maintain the aura of Frankish unity. But day-to-day governance gradually slips into other hands, the hands of powerful nobles, dukes, counts, and above all, the mayors of the palace. These mayors, originally administrators, grow in influence as they organize armies, manage taxes, and oversee court affairs. Imagine them moving quietly through the royal halls, carrying scrolls, meeting envoys, handling petitions, while kings stand as serene figures of tradition, still revered by the people, but no longer the engines of daily rule. That it is a calm transition. Not a fall, but a gentle evolution. The monarchy becomes ceremonial, the aristocracy becomes active, and the kingdom continues without disruption. Among the mayors of the palace, 1. Family begins to stand out, not because of arrogance or aggression, but because of competence, steadiness, and the trust they earn from nobles, bishops, and common people alike. This is the family that will later be called the Carolingians, their early members. Figures like Pepin of Herstal and Charles Martel are not yet kings, but their leadership guides the kingdom with quiet strength. Imagine them working behind the scenes, maintaining roads, strengthening armies, supporting monasteries, defending borders, and ensuring peace in a realm that has grown vast and diverse. They do not overthrow the Merovingians, they do not rebel. They simply serve, effectively, patiently, until the people, the nobles, and the church come to see them as the true guardians of the realm. And still, the Merovingians remain, their kings sitting in calm dignity, their lineage respected, their presence a reminder of centuries of unity as time flows like a quiet river. Merovingian kings become figures of ritual, their role symbolic, their presence gentle. Picture one of the final kings riding through a village. Children gather to watch, awed by his flowing hair, a sign of sacred legitimacy. Elders bow respectfully, priests offer blessings. Merchants step as he passes with a small escort to the people. The king is not irrelevant. He is a symbol, the living connection to their past, their unity, their shared identity. But behind him, guiding the kingdom's direction, rides the mayor of the palace, a man whose duties shape the future. Together, they represent a world in transition. Eventually, as gently as a candle burning low at midnight, the Merovingian dynasty comes to its quiet end. The last king, Childeric III, rules with respect but limited influence, and when the time comes for the kingdom to shift toward the Carolingians, the transition is peaceful. There is no war and no chaos and no rebellion. The church blesses the change, the nobles accept it. The people barely feel a ripple. It is as if the Merovingians, after centuries of guiding the land, simply bow to the future, their legacy complete. The Carolingians will build upon what they shaped, raising new kings, creating new laws, and eventually producing Charlemagne, one of Europe's most influential rulers. But none of this erases the quiet importance of the Merovingian as you breathe gently. Think of everything the Merovingians gave to Europe. The unification of the Frankish tribes, the spread and deep rooting of Christianity, the rebirth of urban life, the rise of monasteries, and literacy, the blending of Roman and Germanic traditions, the stability that allowed future kingdoms to thrive. Their dynasty, did not blaze like a meteor. It glowed steadily, patiently, silently. A soft light guiding Europe out of darkness and into renewal. Their world was one of slow rhythms. Church bells, plows cutting soil, scribes turning parchment pages, kings traveling along forested roads, villagers watching the seasons pass. A world that carried Rome's memory and prepared the ground for medieval Europe to bloom. Let yourself rest knowing the quiet understanding that no era truly ends. Each one folds gently into the next, like waves merging on a calm shore. The Merovingians fade into twilight, but their influence echoes softly through the centuries. Every church bell in medieval Europe, every monastery that preserved ancient wisdom, every law, every tradition, every custom that endured, carries a trace of their long and gentle rule that as you drift toward sleep. Imagine the early medieval landscape one last time. Fields bathed in golden dusk, villages glowing with hearthlight, monasteries rising in serene valleys, rivers flowing quietly toward distant seas, and somewhere, in a royal hall, the last Merovingian king lowering his hedos, a new era dawns. The story continues, but the chapter of the Merovingians closes softly, like the turning of a final page in a long, peaceful book.